Hello students, welcome back. Hope you all are doing good. Now, as I have already started with a chapter number 5 of this book, The Snake and the Mirror, but as it has been deleted by the CBSE, but for the other students, I'll make the another videos. But for the school purpose, as the CBSE syllabus, the poem, next poem, which is going to be there, which have been added by the CBSE, that is A Legend of the Northland, which is written by the poetess Fort Carey. Now let's start. What does the word legend means? Legend means old traditional story. Old traditional story. So now a legend of Northland, the old traditional story of the Northland. Let's start with the first stanza of this poem. It's like this. Away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few, and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. As away, away in the Northland, far away in the Northland. The story belongs that far away in the Northland where the hours of the days are very few, where the hours are very less and the nights are so long in the winter, as it's the chill place, it's the cool place. It's difficult for the peoples or the creatures to survive, that they cannot sleep them through. It's quite difficult to sleep in that chilly nights. So that's why the nights are so long in the winter. Especially in the winter, it's too cold for them to sleep or to survive there. Where they harness the swift reindeer, where they harness, the meaning of the word harness. Harness means to tie. Now the word swift reindeer, the meaning of the word swift is fast. Where they harness, where they tie the swift reindeer. You have already seen the Santa Claus driving the sledge to the sledge, where they tie the reindeer, the fast reindeer, to the sledges made up of wood. And when it snows, what is the time? When it is snowing. And the children look like the bear's cubs, the little bear's cub in the funny furry clothes. And they are looking very funny in that, the furry clothes. The furry clothes means the clothes which are made up of fur. Especially nowadays, the teddy bears, whichever you have seen, which are made up of fur. So this was the second stanza, where they harness the swift reindeer, where they tie the swift, the fastest reindeer, to the sledges in the snow time. And the children, they just look like a bear's cub, the young ones of the bear, as they have worn that kind of clothes, the furry clothes, and they look funny in that kind of attire. Now let's move to the third stanza. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe it's true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. Now here they have been told a curious stories. Here the curious word means something strange. They have been told a curious stories by their elder ones. I don't believe it's true. Here the poet Fort Carey is saying that I'm not believing it. I don't believe whatever the story which have been told, which have been narrated, the legends, I don't believe it. And yet you may learn a lesson. Either I believe it or not, but as whatever the tale I'm going to tell you. Here the word tale means story. Whatever the story which have been narrated, which have been told, I don't believe it's true or not, but whatever the thing I'm going to tell you, you can learn a lesson from that. Now let's move on for the fourth stanza. Once when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about in preaching, just as he did, you know. Now, as the word saint, Rishimuni, or the sages, they move from one place to another. They just keep on roaming around the world. So there was once good Saint Peter. The name of that saint sage was Peter, who lived in that world below. And walked about it preaching. He just keep on roaming the world, moving around the world, preaching. The word preaching means to give some moral advice. Here the preaching means to give some moral advice in a group, right? Or to talk about the sermons. Here we can say just moral advice, the good advice to the people in gathering, where the people are gathered and you are giving some moral advice, or delivering sermons, especially in the church. They deliver sermons in the church, right? Next, this was the fourth stanza, where a good Saint Peter who was roaming. He come to the door of a cottage and travelling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on a hearth. Now as he was roaming all over the world, then he came across a door next to a cottage, where what he saw a lady who was baking a cake on a hearth. Hearth means fireplace, or in Hindi whatever we call it as a bhatti, where the people cook food or bake food. So he came to a door, to a cottage in a traveling around the earth. While traveling around the earth, he came across one cottage. He stopped on the door of that cottage, and what he saw there, where he saw a little woman, a tiny woman was making a cakes and baking them on the hearth. She was baking them on the hearth. So these were the first 5 stanzas, where we have seen that a Saint Peter who came across a little woman.